GingerGM.
Well, welcome to a long play video here, and let's hope I'm facing a legitimate person, and I'm playing someone who you may notice is quite a fair bit lower rated than me, but that doesn't really matter. The whole point of these videos, as I've discussed many times before, is to go into my thinking and what a grandmaster thinks, and that's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to try to play some different openings for you guys. I've seen some of you complaining that I only play the same openings, I don't play the English anymore. So in this game I'm going for the English opening, and this used to be a favourite opening of mine up to the age of about 18. So I'm going to try to explain the ideas in this opening, and we'll see how I get on. So I'm now going to continue with knight c3. These are generally the first two moves you play, and the English is a very nice opening if you want to avoid a lot of theory and you want to get sort of a less theoretical position, so less sharp analysed position. It can be a bit more positional than other openings, but that's not always the case. Now my opponent has played with a Nimzo Indian setup, and the line I like playing now, rather than going d4, which allows the Nimzo Indian after bishop b4, I like this move e4 here, and I believe this is called the McCain's-Carles variation. And this is something, again, I've got very fond memories of this. I got my first international master norm. You need to get 3 norms in order to become an international master plus a rating. I got my first one by winning a game in this variation, I think when I was 15 in the Swansea British Championships many years ago. God, 24 years ago, where I defeated Grandmaster James Howe with this line. So it's a nice way to play. This is the natural response and the main line, and this is again what James Howe played. And here there are a couple of options. It's trendy now to go c takes d5, but the old line which I always enjoyed playing here was e5, and this is one of the more sharper variations of the English opening, and this leads to very interesting positions generally. And I get this pawn, I push that knight away, and this is the standard counter attack. And now I'm going to continue with the theoretical move by taking on f6. My opponent has to recapture my knight here, and now I'm going to take on c3. And again, this is still very standard stuff. My opponent should take with a queen so he doesn't double his pawn. And this is a very peculiar move. Now I realize I have double pawns, but these are not so weak because I'm going to play d4 normally, and my pawns support each other in the center. This move I've never seen before. Queen takes f6 is normal, and I'll show you some variations in that line in the analysis afterwards. So if you're interested in learning this opening, you can do that. But this is a very peculiar move, and I think the most natural move here, obviously I want to develop my pieces, but at the start of the game you need to control the center, and the move d4 it must be the correct move. And you can see the double pawn on c3 in some cases helps this by guarding my center in a stronger manner. And I'm going to try to go for normal development, knight f3. I have to decide where I'm going to put the bishop on f1. Often in the English opening, normally in the English opening, you go g3 and bishop g2. This is very standard practice in the English, and it's a very nice positional diagonal for the bishop. And this is one reason why lots of people like the English. This bishop exerts pressure to black's queen side across the middle of the board, and it's positionally a very nice bishop to have. I mean, in some cases the bishop on d3 might be quite good. I don't necessarily like e2 here. I don't really see what it's doing on e2, but maybe it's just a safe way to play. I mean, if my opponent decides to castle quickly this way, then d3 would be very good because I'm aiming for h7. But I would guess that my opponent castling kingside is rather suicidal, with him opening the g file. So he's going to have to think where he puts his king now. If he castles kingside, he's a bit exposed. And again, when we're playing chess, as well as thinking of our own ideas, let's try to work out what our opponent's going to do and how we're going to act against it. It's a game of two sides, which I say time and time again, but it's so important. If he puts his king onto the queen side, then he's going to be abused on the b file. So he's trying to use his double pawns to make some action in the center of the board. So this seems reasonably logical to me. And I have a number of ways to play now. I don't like taking because the queens come off, and when he captures back, I've kind of isolated these pawns. They prefer their brother on d4 being next to them, so I don't want to separate them. They become weaker. I don't think I want to push on at the moment, because if I push on, every pawn move in chess makes a weakness on a square, and that weakens the c5 square. And my opponent will be able to probably lump a knight into that square, knight a6, knight c5, and I don't want to give him easy squares. So I think I want to maintain this. Another interesting idea I've just seen is the possibility of going c5. That's a bit weird, but I want to get my bishop to c4 in that case, because f7 has become a target now that he's pushed his pawns forward. So that's a very interesting way of play. So I'll have a look at this. So c5, pawn takes pawn, bishop c4, let's say, and that's an intriguing way to play. But bishop takes c5, I'm 2 pawns down, and there I can play queen to h5, attacking this one and attacking the bishop, but he can go queen e7 check defending. So c5 takes bishop c4, bishop takes here. I can take there first, king takes, check over here, the king moves. Where does the king move? The king hasn't got many squares to move to. If it comes here, my bishop flies in, and elsewhere I can take this bishop, and maybe he goes. So actually, that's not, this c5 move is very interesting. The standard move here, and probably the best move. I mean, you know, I'm going for tactics without really any development, so I don't really want to break some rules. I mean, I think I'll bear that c5 move, you know, in mind, and it might come into play later on, but I just feel I need to develop some more pieces before going all out for this. So okay, I'm going to just develop my knight. Let's just bring the knight out, knight f3. Maintaining my center, developing, a little bit of pressure going on there. If he ever pushes forwards, my knight can come to h4, and I can potentially have an outpost of my knight on f5. Why on f5? This is very common practice when your opponent has moved a pawn away from g7 or e7, and g6 and e6, which my opponent has. He has no pawns on this square. He's made this square very weak. So if I ever get a knight into this square, you know, if I can exchange light square bishops, for example, this is a positional way of thinking, then my opponent will find it very hard to remove that knight from that square. So I can certainly consider this move, and also then my queen can come over here. But I think I just want to play, you know, before you really go on an attack in chess, you have to do the foundations. You can't really attack without any developed pieces. It doesn't work. So I think we have to sort of abide by some rules here. Now this is a very sensible move, of course. My opponent pins my knight, develops a piece. I mean, it's got to be a decent move, and threatens maybe e4. So I could play h3, but I expect to drop back. I mean, if he takes there, I'll be very happy. I feel my queen, I've got a lot of light squares. I like that position. So let's have a look. h3, he drops back, and then consistent to my plan might be g4. Bishop g6, and taking the pawn there, I don't still like, because I feel my king is a bit misplaced. So I don't really like that. I mean, the other sensible move here, develop a piece, break the pin, bishop e2. I mean, I think c5 and bishop c4 idea is just taking too long. I think I'm just going to go bishop e2. I mean, you don't need to do anything particularly special on the opening stage of the game. It's later on where you need to think in unique ways. And this just breaks the pin and allows my knight to move. And remember, I did say earlier, if I can exchange off light square bishops, my knight can come here. So one idea that becomes stronger now is knight h4. Because then if he goes bishop takes bishop, queen takes, my knight has a lovely square there, and his bishop no longer defends that square. So looking for squares for your knights becomes sensible. Now knight c6 a logical move, increasing a bit of pressure here. And now I'm very much more tempted to play d5 because I gain a tempo by attacking the knight. So, you know, that's quite handy. And I also, his knight can't get to c5 quicker. So d5 seems very logical here. But we should just look at some tactical ideas as well. If I go knight takes e5, let's say he goes bishop takes e2, knight takes c6, bishop takes d1, knight takes d8. If something takes d8, I take on d1, I've won a pawn. So this is a tactical idea. Knight takes e5, standard tactical idea. Bishop takes here, knight takes c6, bishop takes here, knight takes here. So I think he would have to move his bishop then. Where to? Because wherever he moves his bishop, my knight should be able to take on this square, if you can picture the position. Bishop a4, bishop knight takes here, rook b8, and my knight can come back to this square, which seems quite safe to me. So I you know, if you can win a pawn, why not? So I think this is working. Knight takes here. Now if he takes it, I take on this square. Should be good, no? So knight takes here. Anything else, I take the bishop. So bishop takes e2, knight takes f6. I'm double checking because it's a complex line. Bishop takes here, knight takes here. And there's no way he can bring his bishop back to guard b7, and my knight should be able to pop out there. Worst case, come to c5. So you've got to be confident when you play these things. This is a standard tactical motif. So unless I've done something really stupid, wouldn't be for the first time, you've got to have confidence in your own play. So I'm going to wheel this move out here as an idea. I mean, d5 was the other thought, but you know, you should always be aware of tactical ideas, and if you can win material, then of course you should play tactical ideas. And he's now working this line out. So as you can see, my idea is to take on d8. Okay, so he hasn't gone for that, and I think this is a very risky way for him to play. He may well get his pawn back here, so he's not going to be a pawn down, but as soon as I castle, his king is so exposed now. So I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to castle, and I want to get a rook to e1 straight away. So I haven't won a pawn this way. It's equal in material, but by my opponent losing his protection on the e file, my rook is going to become very strong. And this is a very good bishop, stop him castling that way. So already I feel his position is creaking. Now rook e1 is logical. Other ideas include stopping him castling, bishop h6, but I'm not too worried if he castles there. He's going to be very weak. And I could just take here, but after queen takes, do I have a good move there? I have rook b8 as well, rook b1, creating a threat there. So rook here, takes here. What do I do then? Probably something simple like queen c2. I mean, this is a bit of a lazy move. Maybe I have something better, but this can't be a bad move. I mean, often to get a good position, you don't have to play anything that requires more than 1-2 moves for. And he has castled, and now his king is in real danger. I mean, bishop f5 coming for this square, my queen coming over. One idea. Bishop h6 at the right moment, but I want to allow my queen access in. So I'm going to play bishop f5. I attack h7. I might even have sacrifices on f7, h7 with my queen coming in and my rook coming around. This would be a typical rook swing, but my main threat here is simply to bring the queen in to attack this square. And it's very hard for him to defend about this. If he tries to get his queen over, how does he stop queen h5? It does not help him. And this is just my main simple idea. And again, you can see sometimes to win games of chess, you really don't need to calculate that deeply. I often win games where you don't calculate deeply. That's not always the case. But if you just stick to logical moves, I did have to calculate this, like, what was it, 5-6 move sequence. But the reason that was quite easy to calculate was that the line was very forcing. There weren't many tree graphs coming off that, you know, as you get in computer sciences, where you, you know, the tree goes off and you have to calculate many different moves that your opponent has. You know, you may have, you know, different possibilities. In that line, there was only one line taking the queen, which I really had to basically consider. And when I worked out that was okay for me, then we can just play it. And my opponent didn't want to be a pawn down, but this other option he has here, I just saw he's having some kind of disconnecting. I hope now because he realizes he's got lost position, he's not one of those arseholes who's going to disconnect. Oh my words, I hope not. I hope not. I hope he plays a move or resigns. I mean, is his position that bad? Well, I don't see a way to stop this queen just entering very simply into the attack. When you lose your g-pawn, you lose a lot of protection for your king. So okay, so he hasn't, okay, to his credit, he hasn't resigned, but I think this is checkmate. No, queen here. If he goes rook e8, I take. My bishop comes to h6. So I think this is, we don't need to go fireworks, just very simple attack. Queen comes in, we attack h7. The reason I found bishop f5, we're thinking about our opponent's weaknesses. He doesn't have a g-pawn, so he can't defend. And now we simply have checkmate in a couple of ways. His king can't run to the e-file because his king is cut off. And my bishop, my last piece, is entering. And we have 3 ways to checkmate him after that. After king f8, check. Let's show it. We have at least 3 different checkmates. And he's resigned there, not giving me the satisfaction of checkmating him. Can you see all the 3 checkmates? I won't give them away. I think there's only 3, but there is 3 different ways to finish the game off here. So that was a nice crisp 17 move win with the English. And my opponent, I feel, obviously didn't play very well, but I mean, he's a decent player. Okay, a lot of you, again, the one criticism I get for this is, why don't you play high rated players, blah blah blah. You know, it's like, that's not the point. You're missing the point. The whole point is to show how a grandmaster thinks. Doesn't matter who I play. 1900 is a good rating. I'm sure most of the people who say those comments are rated well below 1900. That's why they feel the need to chip up and start some rubbish so they can sod off. And the whole point is just demonstrating how a grandmaster beats these players. These players are more likely to be the level that you play at, no offense, unless some grandmasters are watching, which I find a bit doubtful, but possible. So that's why we do these videos. And the other thing is, it's very hard for me to find players to play who are over 2200. I was waiting 20 minutes to find someone, and to arrange a game in advance obviously takes some time. I have to find a good player to play who's not working. So that's the reason. I'm not explaining that again. You either get it or you don't. If you don't get it, bye. Okay, right, let's have a little look at the game with the computer. And that was quite a smooth victory. He certainly wasn't a computer cheat. Let's have a look at my accuracy. So you're probably aware of how this works now from my last one. Chess.com, I really like their new feature here, which is after a game you can analyze the game with one of their programs, and I think it's Stockfish 10, so it's an incredibly strong program. And I'm going to bring this up now. You can see the black box above me. This is going to show you the computer assessment as we go along. I don't necessarily always agree with the computer's assessment, but in most cases it gives us a good indication. So looking at what the computer says over here, hopefully you can see that. Maybe if you're watching this on a phone you can't. I played 7 best moves, 1 excellent move, 2 good moves, 6 book moves, and only 1 inaccuracy. So my accuracy level was 97.9. That's not bad. My opponent's 20.2. So if he was using a computer, it was one that was developed in the 1800s. So let's have a look. Okay, so this is all theory, as I've talked about. The other move is c5 here. There was a couple of games, it's not best, don't listen to the computer there. This was played in, Kasparov used to play this position as white quite often. I think there was even a Kasparov-Karpov battle here. And one very trendy pawn sacrifice is e5. And now the knight has to go back to g8. And then you go knight f3. And the idea of blacks is this pawn is overextended. Knight c6, d4, pawn takes, knight takes, and you give up this pawn on e5, and you play knight here, trying to go for this compensation. So this is the other book line, but I think this is very dangerous for black. I wouldn't want to play this way as black. So the way that black now plays is, as we saw, he counter strikes in the center with d5. And now e5, the book move, d4 book, taking here is book, as we can see, and this is all normal. And now the main line is queen takes f6, and this is a better move probably. Not because then black has options of castle and kingside and not getting checkmated. Now here, I'll tell you a funny story. You may have heard me say it before. When I got this first International Master Norm, I was playing a 2500 15. I beat him, and we followed this line here, e5, which was the trendy line. Knight to f3, pawn takes d4, bishop g5, queen e6 check. This is all theory that was from when I'm 15, 24 years ago. And in this position, d3 was the trendy move. Castles here, and let me get this right. Oh dear, have I got? Can I remember this correctly? It's been a while. I think it was f6. It's been so long since I've had this. It's quite hard to remember. Oh no, maybe I've can I not remember this correctly? That's embarrassing. God, when you get old, the memory goes. So bishop e2, was it here now? That was it. So I think, yeah, rather than playing d3 there, because you can castle, he can't take here because this is checkmate. The old theoretical line used to be f6 to bust that one open. Knight takes d4, then queen f7, and my first ever victory in this, and this is before the days of computers. It's quite a funny story. My dad, who was a strong player, showed me the move, a novelty at the time, bishop h6, and this was an amazing idea of my dad's. He found it without a computer. The idea is, if that's taken, bishop h5, and black can't play g6. That's why I want to just bring up this bit of analysis. And in this position, black is losing. And bishop h6 I played, and I beat this player, James Howe, 2500. I got an iron norm. After the game, Matthew Sadler came up to me and he said, that bishop h6 move, did you come up with that? An amazing novelty. And I said, my dad did. And the annoying thing was, this was in the British, the game was recorded. A couple of years later, a grandmaster in the Russian championships played this move, a couple of years after I did. Maybe more than a couple. And it got voted by Informator novelty of the decade or something, of the year at least. And he won some prize. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute, I played that before him. Don't take that away from me. So that was quite random. But this is the other main line. I mean, the way it continued, I'm interested now to see where my mistake is. Because d4 has to be correct. Now it says rook b1 is correct. How can taking a center with a pawn be incorrect? It can't be. E5 is best. Developing is good. It says knight e2 is best, but why would I want to block this bishop in? To go g3 and bishop g2? Again, don't always take the computer's advice. When you're playing, have your own mind about you. Please do try to use your own brain and play in a human way, not a computer way. You can use this as a tool in case you miss the tactic, but don't always let it change the way you think. Okay, bishop g4, bishop e2 is excellent, looks normal to me. Knight c6 is good, and now knight takes e5 is an inaccuracy. Interesting. This is the tactic I thought was good. It says, instead of this move, I should have played rook b1, hitting here. So why is this an inaccuracy? Well, it gives the line. Let's have a look. Bishop takes e2. Knight takes c6. Bishop takes d1. Knight takes d8. And now it gives the line bishop c2. Okay. When, as you can remember in my analysis, I was going to go knight takes b7. And I'm 2 pawns up here. And it also says I'm only 0.74. Very intriguing. It now gives a5 to stop my knight coming there, and something like castles, king d7, and maybe the computer has a point here. This is quite intriguing. Maybe actually black has pretty decent compensations. 2 bishops coming like this. My knight has to come here to escape, and then my opponent might start gobbling up all my pawns. And if you think about it, my 2 extra pawns. Let's, for example, say, I don't know, I'm just going to show you a variation here. Let's just say my knight has to come to c5. My 2 extra pawns, they're not very good, are they? They're 2 extra pawns in that ridiculous file. So that's interesting. So I maybe should have spent more time on this tactical idea of knight takes e5. I mean, I'm not worse there, so it's not a blunder. but I'm intrigued that the computer can see that little bit further. Okay, I mean, after I played this, so I have to change my assessment a little bit. My opponent clearly is now losing, I feel. Bishop e7, rook e1 is best, castles is a massive blunder, and after this one you can see he's completely losing, and when my queen comes here there's no way to stop checkmate, mate and 4. So there we go. Okay, so interestingly, one thing I have to, I always want to try to learn something myself, even when I'm playing a lower rated player. When I win, I want to play the best I can, and you should always try to take away a lesson from everything. Ask yourself after your game you've analysed, what did I learn from that? If you can learn one thing from each game, you're on your way to becoming a better player, obviously. So what can I learn from that? I think I can take away the fact that when I analyse complex lines, and I don't normally do this, so that knight takes e5, next time just try to think that little bit further, look at your extra pawns and ask yourself, are they really relevant? If not, don't release the tension, especially in a position that should be good for you. Instead, play a simple move that improves your position and maybe wait for a better opportunity to win a pawn. So that's the main thing I can take away from that game. Okay, well, I hope you liked the video. If you're new to this channel, please do subscribe to the channel below. Subscribe and like, that does help me. The subscribe button's in the middle of the screen, probably down there somewhere. Very small, little subscribe button. Do press it, it helps me. I've got my stream schedule where I'm doing live shows put up on my Facebook page. The link to my Facebook page is in the description below this. So go and join my Facebook page, and I hope to see you for some live shows. The first one is on Wednesday, so I'll be doing that tomorrow as I put this video out. Thanks a lot. Goodbye, everyone. I hope you have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed that English opening. Bye for now.